How's it going, Giants fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Day 5 of training camp today. A lot of really great takeaways, some injuries we want to talk about. Kadarius Toney being more involved in the offense. Kayvon Thibodeaux going up against Andrew Thomas, Matt Gano, Saquon, Cordell Flott. There's a couple of really good things going on for this team. And some maybe questionable ones that we will discuss nonetheless. But pads came on today a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more physical. Excited to see some of these guys go at it with the pads because it really simulates a live game action and gives us a better idea of where they're at right now in the progression as preseason gets really, really close now that we're just started August. But guys, hope you enjoyed Monday, August 1st, having a great start to the new month. And, we have football right around the bend here. So I'm super excited, Anthony. How you doing tonight, my friend?
Dude, I'm doing great. I'm super excited. The pads are on. This is where things really start to ramp up towards the NFL season. Of course, it's one thing to evaluate these guys at practice when they're wearing gym shorts and t-shirts, and then it's another thing when they've got full pads on and they're hitting each other, right? So this is a huge difference now that the Giants have the pads on. We're talking about, this offensive lineman had a good day last week, but how can you really evaluate how great of a day they're having when they don't even have the pads on? Now we can really evaluate these guys like Shane Lemieux, who's been playing center, and of course the defensive lineman as well. Kayvon Thibodeaux is going up against Andrew Thomas. It's going to get a lot more exciting now in training camp now that the Giants have the pads on. And today there was a lot of really great storylines to discuss. So I'm really excited to dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. So right off the bat, let's take a look at the two main injuries that Brian Dable did speak about before training camp started today. The first one is John Feliciano, our starting center, a guy they brought in from the Buffalo Bills. Doesn't have a ton of experience at center, maybe about 300 total snaps in his career at the position. But he's the cemented starter right now. And he had some heat exhaustion, some heat issues last week. He's taken 2-3 days off now. So now, the guy who's been supplementing that has been Shane Lemieux. And I do want to discuss that and why I think that's a really good thing for Shane Lemieux specifically. But the other injury was Dane Belton. People saw him wearing a sling on his left arm. So it could have been some sort of dislocation, could have been anything. But Dane Belton not suited up, not practicing today. He's been featuring with the first team on some 3 safety looks in this Wink Martindale system. He's not known for his man coverage abilities, but he's a good zone coverage safety. He can play in the box, hard hitting. He can play up against the run. And he does a really good job of reading quarterbacks' eyes when playing zone. So he's a guy that, 5 interceptions last year as a junior for Iowa. So pretty solid campaign last year, but did struggle against Wan'Dale Robinson, actually, who said, he was one of the toughest receivers he faced off against all season long. So, Cordell Flott also mimics that. So interesting there, Dane Belton having this left arm injury. We don't know much about it just yet, so we will get you guys more information once we know exactly what it is and how long he's going to be out for, but hopefully it's not too long. Right now, Julian Love kind of has that strong safety spot. I wouldn't say locked up, but definitely he's the leader to be the starter for this for the regular season up to this point. But I do think Dane Belton will end up becoming a pretty valuable piece to this defense and maybe even steal that job down the road. But Anthony, what is your thoughts on Dane Belton having this sling on and just kind of what happens in the meantime? I guess it's a good thing they signed Andrew Adams recently.
Yeah, definitely a good thing they signed Andrew Adams. They need to add maybe even a little bit more depth at the safety position, but I'm taking a look at it right now. There's some other guys on the roster. Gavin Heslop, I've never really heard of him. Yusuf Corker, I know you're a fan of him, Alex. I know that there's been talk before in the past about Aaron Robinson maybe trying out safety. Of course, Cordell Flott has also played a little bit of safety in his collegiate career, and some people thought that he was projected as a better safety than a corner entering the NFL. So they have some moves that they could potentially make, but I really think that the main thing here is Dane Belton. I hope that this isn't a serious injury because this is a player that I was really excited for. I really like Dane Belton, everything that he brings to the table. I thought that considering the way that Wink Martindale runs his defense, there was a chance that you see a lot of Dane Belton on the field this year in terms of playing in those nickel packages, playing the big nickel packages, the dime packages, being that cash, that hybrid guy that plays linebacker slash safety slash slot cornerback, doing all of those things. I think Dane Belton would have really excelled in this defense, and I still think that he will once he's healthy, but I'm just hoping that this doesn't take too long to recover from. Whatever injury this is, I really hope it's minor. I hope it's no arm break, maybe just a little dislocation, something like that, something that's not too serious, because I want to see this player play in the preseason. It's huge for rookies, mid-round rookies especially, that their first NFL action is not during the regular season. It needs to be during the preseason, in my opinion. I think that's really, really important for a rookie like Dane Belton, who's kind of got like an undefined role in a defense. He needs to find and define his role. There needs to be definition to what he's meant to do on the defensive side of the ball for the Giants. So I think the way that they sort that out would be through the preseason, just testing him out in a few different spots. So I'm really hoping that this isn't something that carries on all the way into September. Hopefully, now that we're in August, it's a quick injury, and maybe in a week or two, he's ready to go again and he can get out there on the field for the preseason, because I think that's super, super important for the development of Dane Belton.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully this injury is not something that's going to carry over into a long-term situation. But the next topic I want to discuss is Shane Lemieux at center that we have kind of touched on a little bit. I love the idea of having Shane Lemieux take snaps at center because I don't see him as our long-term left guard. He's going into his third season. He is only has a 4-year deal as a rookie contract. They could extend him, but I will say this: I really like Josh Ezeudu. I really think that he's going to be our long-term starter at left guard. He's on a rookie deal in terms of he's in the first year of his rookie deal. He has 4 years left to make an impact with this team. And then maybe extend it beyond that. But of course, right now it's about getting him the necessary reps. He's been starting at left guard with John Feliciano, kind of spending time on the side, rehabilitating from that little heat issue he had the other day. And Lemieux's been getting the shots at center over Jamil Douglas. So I think this is a good thing. Lemieux, getting those reps. He's a little bit smaller than Ezeudu, but I do think that he has the feistiness and aggressiveness to be a good center in the NFL. I would be totally fine if they went with Lemieux at center, if he could get the snaps down right and he could learn how to play the center position pretty efficiently, or at least at an average level, because I think that's kind of what Feliciano is going to be, if not a little bit below average. And then you have Ezeudu, your rookie at left guard, who has really quick feet. He has good hands. He's strong. He just needs to kind of work on his fundamentals and connect the symmetry between his and just the correlation between his feet and hands have been a little bit off, that consistency and the chemistry between them. So I think, developing that part of his game is going to go a long way into making him a pretty efficient and good blocker down the road. But he is very strong and a lot of upside there as a mid-round pick. But, Anthony, we're looking at Shane Lemieux at center. What are your thoughts on that? I think that's kind of an interesting spot. I didn't expect him to kind of be playing there right now and getting those reps, but I really like the idea of him being a center.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm super excited by this development coming out of camp. I think this is the most exciting part of training camp so far for me. Not to really say that too. I'm not trying to say anything about John Feliciano, okay? I like John Feliciano. I think he brings a lot to the table, but I'm more excited to see these young guys on the field. As always, I want to see the potential of young players. Like Joshua Ezeudu, third-round pick, 67th overall pick, an early third-round pick. This is a guy that has a bright future ahead of him for the Giants, in my opinion. I think that Joshua Ezeudu has a lot of potential and one day will be a starter at left guard. I agree with you, Alex. And he also has the ability to play left tackle. He's kind of that guy that can do everything. He can be, a multi-positional offensive lineman, which is always super important. The Giants have been valuing that across the past 3 regimes. So I think every NFL team just kind of values having flexibility on the offensive line. And that's what we're seeing right now with Shane Lemieux, which I think is super important. If for any reason John Feliciano is not able to suit up during the regular season, I think now the discussion is who is number 2 on that depth chart at center. And number 2 on that depth chart, I think, has to be Shane Lemieux. He's already getting the reps there. I think there's more potential there than there is for a guy like Jamil Douglas. I think the number 2 on the depth chart should be Shane Lemieux. He'll be number 1 on the depth chart at left guard, of course, but on the depth chart at center, he should be number 2. And number 2 on the depth chart at left guard should be Joshua Ezeudu, so that if anything happens to Feliciano, you move Lemieux over to center, and then you move Ezeudu up to left guard. And I think one other takeaway from this, the fact that Shane Lemieux is taking those snaps at center right now with the first team, it means that Joshua Ezeudu is receiving an influx of first team reps at left guard, which is huge for his development. Going up against the best of the best during practice makes you the best in the games. And I think that's super important for Joshua Ezeudu, just to be getting those first team reps, because there was kind of a question, would he see those first team reps this summer? Was he actually going to play with the starters, or was he really just going to be penciled in as a backup all summer long and just kind of develop behind the scenes? Well, now this injury, or whatever you might call it, with John Feliciano has propelled Joshua Ezeudu in with the first team, which I think is super exciting, just to help him develop. And again, Shane Lemieux sounds like he's having a really solid camp. It sounded like he was looking good at left guard, and I know the pads weren't on, but now the pads are on, and it sounds like he's doing a good job at center as well. So maybe this is a new beginning for Shane Lemieux, a real struggle of a rookie season a couple of years ago, coming off of that injury in year 2, year 3. Maybe it's his breakout season. Maybe the potential will finally be realized with this new coaching staff, and maybe it will be at center. I don't know, but I'm super excited to see it all unfold during preseason.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's going to be fun. I would like them to even split those reps during preseason, get a little bit of action, see what they can do in a live game setting. But the next little topic I want to talk about here is Kayvon Thibodeaux. And there's some clips that we're going to, kind of flow throughout this video so you can get an idea of what practice was like and some cool things that happened. But Kayvon Thibodeaux faced off against Andrew Thomas and Matt Gano, who was kind of playing at right tackle a little bit at times. Kayvon Thibodeaux absolutely demolished Gano, as you would expect. But Andrew Thomas, he slipped. Kayvon Thibodeaux slipped going around the edge. And, I think he would have beat Andrew Thomas on that rep specifically. But Andrew Thomas recovered nicely and set his base and was managed to stifle KT. But I think KT actually won a rep a little bit later on in a red zone drill that pushed Daniel Jones outside of the pocket. So Kayvon Thibodeaux has really been doing a great job of showcasing that pass rush. He is extremely efficient with that speed and that bend around the edge. He's a strong guy, has a myriad of different pass rush moves he can utilize. But so far, he looks like he's making an impact against some of our better offensive linemen. And that's a really good sign, Anthony. Seeing that Andrew Thomas and Kayvon Thibodeaux matchup is exactly what we want to see, especially with the pads on. You're getting to see a little bit more of that physicality, and it's so much fun to witness. But I'll tell you what, it's going to be even better to see Kayvon Thibodeaux do it against other teams, notably Dallas. So I'm excited about this, guys. But Anthony, what are your thoughts on those matchups there and kind of how Kayvon Thibodeaux looked today?
I mean, this is exactly what we've been waiting for, right? This is what we wanted the pads on for this exact reason, so that we could see our first glimpse at Kayvon Thibodeaux, the number 5 overall pick in the 2022 NFL draft. We're all over the moon excited over the fact that the Giants landed such a great talent. I think that he's going to be probably Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate from the get-go. I think his season's going to get off to a hot start and end on a hot finish. I think that Kayvon Thibodeaux is that guy, will be a superstar for the Giants. And finally, we get a little glimpse of that right now as he puts the pads on and faces up against Andrew Thomas and the rest of them. Of course, as you mentioned, had a dominant day against Matt Gono. Andrew Thomas, we know how good he is, so of course he's going to hold his own against Kayvon Thibodeaux. Thibodeau's going to win some reps. Thomas is going to win some reps. You can't win them all if you're Thibodeaux, even though you'd like to, but you can't win them all. And I think that it also speaks to Andrew Thomas. Now, Andrew Thomas, you can consider him a veteran, right? This is his 3rd season. He's no longer just a young guy who's developing. He is still developing. He is still young, but he is now a veteran in the NFL by a technicality. Once you're in your 3rd year, you're no longer a rookie, a sophomore. You're a vet. And it's time for him to start acting that way. So he needs to come in there, son Kayvon Thibodeaux on some reps, be like, yo, this is my team. I'm the leader of this team. I'm Andrew Thomas. This is my 3rd season with the Giants. I'm that guy. And then just put him into the dirt. Like he needs to have that mentality. And I think that he will. Keep in mind, he's protecting the blind side of the quarterback for the New York Football Giants. That's no simple task. That's no easy feat to accomplish, to become that guy. And he is that guy. So I'm really excited, not only for Kayvon Thibodeaux in his rookie season, but year 3 of Andrew Thomas, just to see him really cement himself as one of the better half of the NFL, like offensive tackles, just put himself in that upper echelon and prove that he is one of the best tackles in the NFL. I think that he can prove that, and I really can't wait to see that unfold while also watching the development of our established or really exciting rookie in Kayvon Thibodeaux.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much that kind of that happened today. And, another pass rusher that has been standing out is Ocean Eximitas, a guy who's really underwhelmed for this Giants team, kind of missed a lot of time last year with an injury. But now, today he actually had a really nice rep against Evan Neal, completely spun him around. Evan Neal ended up on the ground on his belly. So seeing that from Eximitas, definitely a sign of growth. Maybe can make some contribution to this team during the regular season. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that one practice snap is going to translate to the regular season, but at the very least, maybe he can offer something as a rotational pass rusher. I really hope he can, because he had so much talent coming out of Old Dominion, but some injuries kind of hurt him, and just didn't get that necessary consistency in the reps necessary to really showcase that development and growth. But maybe this year is the year he can make a difference, and in a different system, a different scheme with different coaches. It's possible that he could kind of have an opportunity here to at least supplement fatigue. Azeez Ojulari hasn't been practicing. He's been dealing with a slight hamstring injury that he suffered off the field, doing some other workout stuff. So this is an opportunity for Eximitas to get extra reps and hopefully show that he can be some sort of value to this team and, secure his roster spot. Because right now, I'd very much say that he's a fringe roster player. You got Allerson Smith, you got Quincy Roche. Eximitas has got to show out if he wants to, hold on to a spot on this roster. Anthony, what are your thoughts on him? And do you think he can actually make an impact this year in some way?
I think there's a chance he could. And my thoughts on Oshane Ximines is I'm very surprised to see him standing out during practice. I didn't expect it. We hadn't heard his name for a while. And as you mentioned, fringe roster player. Wasn't even sure if he would make the roster this year. But but it looks like he's playing his way onto the roster. Of course, summer's not over yet. Let's get through preseason. Let's see how he performs during preseason. There's a chance we have a preseason matchup. O'Shane Ximines just doesn't show up, and Ellerson Smith has 3 sacks, right? And then Ellerson Smith wins the roster spot. That's always possible. Things like that can happen. It's a long summer, so let's see. But it is exciting to see early on O'Shane Ximines, as soon as the pads come on, he's here to play. He's having a good day, and I think that is exciting for O'Shane Ximines. This is a guy that I really like. I think he's got a great head on his shoulders. I think that he's a high character player, only player ever drafted from Old Dominion in the 3rd round, 95 overall pick in 2000. What was it, 19 at this point or 20? I don't know. Young guy that I really like and have always been rooting for, but I just feel like the influx of talent at the edge rusher position has just continued to push him down the depth chart. And as you mentioned, pushed him to becoming a fringe roster player. So hopefully he could play well enough to save his job here and compete well enough to earn a spot on the Giants roster. But again, it is early in the summer. There are other names to consider, and it's kind of hard to see what his impact would eventually be with the Giants in the regular season as well, other than just being a depth player, O'Shane Ximines, because I think that Quincy Roche should be that rotational pass rusher. I really like what he brings to the table. Of course, Azeez and Kayvon, they're the starters now, so you're talking about 4th, maybe 5th string edge rusher in O'Shane Ximines, so his path to the field is going to be a rocky one. It's going to be the road less traveled, but let's see if he's able to conquer it.
Yeah, I mean, getting any value out of him at this point would be a big one in my opinion. But there is a couple more things I want to touch on just briefly. Notably, Kadarius Toney. Brian Dable said that he spoke to him about getting him more involved in the offensive scheme. I don't know exactly what that means, but I imagine talking jet sweeps. Maybe some wildcat stuff. Extension of the running game, maybe even using him as the quarterback every now and then, just as more of like a trick play type of situation, flea flicker type of stuff. Those bubble screens behind line of scrimmage, and then he's bombing it downfield to somebody, maybe a Wandale, whoever it might be. Maybe it could be Daniel Bellinger for all we know. But this is a guy, Kadarius Toney, who has so many insane talents. He can throw the ball like 80 yards on his knees. Like, it's just unbelievable the amount of athleticism and quality that he has. But it's about really exposing it, making sure you find any God-given way to extract it and put it on the football field to win games at the end of the day. So I think that's pretty cool. So let you give your thoughts on that. In addition to, they're also saying Cordell Flott, our rookie out of LSU, is going to be competing on the boundary. So he's actually been playing with the second team as the outside corner, which is interesting. He was kind of penciled in as a nickel to start, alongside Darnay Holmes, who's been absolutely kicking ass. So pretty good thing for Cordell Flott to actually be competing on the outside as well. So there's an opening there. Al Robinson had a pass interference today. Has some nice plays, but also struggled a little bit in coverage as he kind of gets his feet underneath of him as a second-year player. And then there was a fight. Cam Brown and Matt Breida got into it. Nothing too crazy, just stuff that usually happens during training camp. What are your thoughts on Kadarius Toney's increased role and Cordell Flott on the outside?
I think Kadarius Toney's increased role is now my favorite storyline coming out of Giants training camp. I'm a huge Kadarius Toney fan. I love everything he brings to the table, and I feel like we've only just seen a small glimpse of it. I think there's so much more to Kadarius Toney than what we saw under Jason Garrett's stale offense last season. I think when you have Brian Dable and Mike Kafka sitting here and trying to come up with how can we maximize this guy's skill set, well, his skill set is almost unlimited. He can do anything on the offensive side of the ball. You want him to be a running back? Okay, he can do that. You want him to be an outside receiver? I think he can even do a little bit of that. In the slot, we know he's a demon, and he can even be your quarterback if Daniel Jones continues to play poorly. If it really gets to that point, my pick for the next quarterback, if the Giants have to make some sort of switch this summer, I'm not going out there and getting Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't even care. I don't want Tyrod Taylor. I want Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney is my QB2 on the Giants right now, just personally. I want to see Kadarius Toney rip some bombs deep to Wandale Robinson. But hopefully he does that anyway. Hopefully Daniel Jones remains a quarterback. And Kadarius Toney doesn't have to take that job over full time. But maybe we can get some trick plays out there, have Kadarius Toney throw some deep passes. We've seen him sling it in practice. We know he's got a cannon. I think he threw a couple passes in the regular season last year too. We know that he could throw the ball, and I'm excited to see him get involved in that way. But I really think that the main message to take away from this, getting Kadarius Toney more involved, as Brian Dable said, we just saw Deebo Samuel just sign that ginormous contract worth over $20 million per year with the San Francisco 49ers. Go watch the way that the 49ers use him. It's innovative. It's exciting. It's got a lot of variety, dude. He lines up anywhere, and they maximize that skill set because he has a very similar skill set to the one that Kadarius Toney has, or Kadarius Toney's is more similar to Deebo Samuel's, I think, because they're both great after the catch. They're both great at breaking tackles, and they have the strength to really line up anywhere. So I think you're going to see Kadarius Toney take some handoffs, line up as a running back alongside Saquon Barkley, or have Saquon Barkley split out wide and then put Kadarius Toney into the backfield, really confuse the defenses there and get some real great matchups. Because when you've got Kadarius Toney in the backfield, you're putting a linebacker most likely in man coverage on Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney is going to take a linebacker's ankles and maybe eat them for a midnight snack. So I can't wait to see that happen. I can't wait to see him line up all over the field and just really unlock that next level. I think Kadarius Toney's potential is limitless, and it's very similar to that of Deebo Samuel. Now, switching to the defensive side of the ball, touching on Cordell Flott, I think that what this says to me is that Darnay Holmes is, as you mentioned, kicking ass. I think that's the main takeaway here, because I think that Darnay Holmes has already won that slot cornerback job. I know it's early on in camp. Anybody can make a play between now and, the regular season, but Darnay Holmes has already been good in the regular season at slot cornerback. No, he hasn't been phenomenal, but I think he's been a solid average player there. And already at camp, he's off to a hot start. He's turning heads. He's making an impact and making an impression on the new defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale. So I do think that Darnay Holmes has that spot locked in. It's his to lose at this point. So it's smart to have Darnay Holmes has that spot. So it's smart to have Cordell Flott try out at other positions and see where he can land, considering that Darnay Holmes is probably not going to be giving up that slot cornerback role.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. This is going to be some nice position battles to kind of keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks. But another one that people are kind of going crazy about is Daniel Jones missing throws in practice and, not looking altogether that great. But I'll tell you what, Brian Daboll said today that he actually has these specific situations where he wants the quarterback to hold on to the ball a little bit longer and try to fit the ball into tighter windows. He puts a lot of emphasis on taking big risks. Sometimes he wants the quarterbacks to throw it up into coverage with a lot of defensive backs to see if the defensive backs come out on top. Like, there are specific scenarios that, monitoring misses and, misses and completions in practice is just irrelevant. It's an unnecessary, it's a stat that has no context behind it, because a lot of these things are situational. A lot of these things are planned. This is where you want to be missing throws, right? Like Daniel Jones struggling right now. It could all be like part of a bigger plan in terms of they want him to be making more difficult throws. They want him to be taking risks and trying to make tosses that are unlikely to be completed, because those are the ones that are going to make the difference in football games, right? The ones that are off script when you're running around, the ones that you see Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, the ones that these guys make all the time, that actually, convert to touchdowns and points on the board. We haven't really seen Daniel Jones have that flexibility and creativity to his game because they haven't let him do that stuff. So I think now what we're seeing is him just kind of like opening everything up for him. It's a lot more intricate, a lot more, flexible and just aggressive in the mentality instead of just short slants, short hook routes, short concepts altogether. I'm not really worried about Daniel Jones right now, although Tyrod Taylor has looked really good, kind of featuring with the second team there. But again, it's the second team. It's not the first team. So there is a significant difference in quality. Now, is Daniel Jones going to succeed this year? I have no idea, but I think at the very least, people are like freaking out about like Jimmy Garoppolo coming over here and stuff. And like, we can't even afford him unless we're going to rip up his contract and extend him. It makes no sense to even acquire him. On top of that, why wouldn't you just roll with Daniel Jones? In worst case scenario, he's your bridge quarterback to a rookie next year, right? Like Jimmy Garoppolo isn't going to make this team a playoff caliber team, right? Like Jimmy Garoppolo had the best running game in football. Jimmy Garoppolo had one of the best offensive lines in football. He had Deebo freaking Samuels, Kyle Shanahan. Let's not take a massive jump here and act like the Giants are going to put him in a spot to win football games right now. So I think that's my main Garoppolo take. What are your thoughts on Daniel Jones struggling so far?
Yeah, it is a little bit concerning. I know that there's a lot of fans that are like, get him out of here, go for Jimmy Garoppolo, let Tyrod Taylor be the starter. It's a competition, okay? I said this, a few weeks ago. This is going to be a camp battle. It's maybe not being presented as one, but I do think that it will be a battle between Tyrod Taylor and Daniel Jones. I think that this is a competition to get the starting job. I do think that Daniel Jones wins the competition. Tyrod Taylor might be looking good against the second string, but have him go up against the first string. Wink Martindale is a great defensive coordinator. Maybe Daniel Jones just isn't used to going up against that level of talent in practice, right? And of course, as you mentioned, Brian Daboll did say today, sometimes these bad throws that we're seeing from Daniel Jones are a product of Brian Daboll telling him, throw it up into traffic because I want to see how the defensive back plays the ball. So that's a lot of this practice, controversy right here, is that some of these throws are not even meant to be completed. They're meant to be incompleted because they want to see how the defensive back plays the ball. Remember, this is not just practice for Daniel Jones. This is practice for everybody on the New York Giants. The coaches as well, and the defensive backs as well. The defensive backs need their practice. They need to know how to respond to deflected passes, passes thrown up in the air, bad throws. They need to practice those situations. You can't just practice good throws coming at you all the time. Defensive backs, haven't we seen Giants defensive backs have terrible throws come their way and then they just act like as if they don't even know what they're doing and they drop an easy interception? We've seen that before. Maybe this is good practice. Have an easy pass come your way so you know what to do and you know how to intercept the ball or deflect the ball. I think that's important, just as important as it is for Daniel Jones to practice making good throws. So I don't think this is Daniel Jones practicing making bad throws necessarily, but it's practicing having the defensive backs respond to bad throws, and I do think that's important as well. In terms of the Jimmy Garoppolo thing, again, the Giants cannot afford that contract. It's never going to happen, and like I said, I would rather see Kadarius Toney take over as the quarterback than I would Jimmy Garoppolo. I love Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm as Italian as they come. I root really hard for Jimmy Garoppolo because he's an awesome Italian NFL quarterback, so I root really hard for him, but he doesn't have a place on the New York Giants. There's just no way to make that contract fit. There's no reason to put the Giants through that and get a game manager like Jimmy Garoppolo on the team. You either risk it all on Daniel Jones and then pack it up next year if it doesn't go well, or you just settle with Kadarius Toney. In my opinion, I just think Toney is a better option there. At least you've got like a limitless potential with Kadarius Toney. Jimmy Garoppolo is not pushing the Giants into the playoffs, guys. Like, that's not going to happen. So the only way that you get into the playoffs is if Daniel Jones has a stellar season, or you're just not making the playoffs and you're getting a top 10 pick and you're replacing Daniel Jones with a new quarterback in the draft next year. Like, it goes one of two ways, in my opinion. So I just think that the Jimmy Garoppolo stuff is just, it's fodder. It's being pumped in by certain news outlets who just want to get some articles with a lot of clicks. And I think it's ridiculous, dude. Jimmy Garoppolo isn't going to be on the New York Giants at any point this season. And again, Daniel Jones is practicing. It's practice at the end of the day. He's going to make mistakes. Once the preseason rolls around, if he's still playing really badly against other teams in the preseason, my concern level will start to increase. And I will start to say, well, maybe we should take a closer look at Tyrod Taylor. But for now, first day of pads, I get it was a sloppy one for Daniel Jones, but I just want everybody to just take some time and have a little bit of patience.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I'd love to hear your thoughts below in the YouTube comments about the myriad of different things that we discussed in this episode, about 27 minutes here. Obviously, a lot to go through, and every day we're going to be giving you guys more updates on this team and the standout performances and underwhelming performances and our thoughts and opinions behind it. But appreciate you guys tuning into Fireside Giants once again, my friends. Make sure to like and subscribe as always. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.